I'm going to talk about my uh, base plate and wiring installation on my 2018 Jeep Wrangler or Sport. It's just a two-door. So it's a Blue Ox base plate. I'm not going to really talk a heck of a lot about that, if at all. The installation video you can find online does a pretty good job talking about that. So I pretty much followed that to the letter. What I am going to talk about is the wiring in here. So we'll start off with the front here. Of course, this is your 6-pin connector, and if I come up under a little bit here, get the lighting, you can see my wiring harness that came with it, the kit, the bulb, and the bulb kit from Blue Ox. I purchased a bunch of wiring loom, that's half-inch wiring loom, to protect the cable with. I really didn't feel comfortable just kind of leaving it out. I ran this across the frame and actually in the frame rail, and just wasn't comfortable leaving it exposed. You can already see evidence of junk and whatnot from a short drive on the loom. So a couple other comments I'm going to make here too is I didn't make this as clean of an install as I would like it to be. A couple of zip ties here that are visible as you're walking around. I'm going to figure out what to do with that. Maybe I'll just get some black zip ties and call it a day. Anyway, so half-inch wiring loom. The wiring loom, comes up here and then goes back through the belly pan. The cutout in the belly pan that was created, my cutout ended up being a little too big as I made an accident on the measurement on that a little bit, so I was able to get the wiring loom through that accidentally wide hole. You can obviously make your own hole to accommodate the wiring loom. And I attached it to the frame rail here using just a simple plastic 3/4 inch cable clamp, and then I used a self-tapping stainless steel screw that is capable of going through the steel of the car, of the frame. So I use that in a few spots. You'll see that, and then you can see that. I'm trying to get my lighting here. You can see that I get the wiring loom into the frame rail, and actually from here it goes all the way to the back. So there's nothing to see all along here, and that includes this little turn up and over, and then you can finally see it exit here. Of course I secured it here. You'll see a branch here, so the 4 wires, the way I wired this was actually not according to their instructions. I found it easier to wire this on the passenger side of the vehicle instead of along the driver's side. So the 4 wires comes up to the passenger side, and then I have the 2 wires coming back out of the passenger side into that other line there, which goes across to the driver's side. So if we take a look at the passenger side light, you'll take the put this down. You'll take the taillight assembly out. It's just 2 screws. You don't need to remove. I'll show it this way. You don't need to remove, in this case, the 2 right-hand screws, just the 2 left screws. And if you open the door, the tail door, this will get out of your way as well. What I wanted to note here was you can see remnants of some styrofoam insulation. I pulled all that out by hand. It wasn't too hard to do by hand. Just got it all out of the way so I could take that plastic plate out, and I drilled a hole through it. It was a 1-inch hole, so I used the same 1-inch hole saw that I used to cut the hole for the taillight. I used the same hole saw for that, and I had a grommet, a bunch of grommets that I have lying around basically, and fed the wires through that. So I silicone sealed that plate down because it sits pretty loose
it would certainly flop around and junk would get up inside there if you didn't seal that back down with something. I'm debating whether or not to put foam back on top of this, but I think it's pretty well sealed against the elements, especially considering the state of affairs in the driver's side light, which you'll see in a second. So one of the things that I may eventually go back and deal with later is this is a pretty permanent installation from a wiring perspective. The wire from the bulb kit, from the bulb itself, is crimped right into everything, and the only thing that really removes is your ground screw. Everything else is at this point, permanent without cutting wires. I'll make a comment about the installation of the light bulb itself. So I'm not going to bother taking the stock bulbs out. There's this bulb, right, which lines up with the reverse light, and there's the other bulb. You can twist these out, which is the brake light, the tail light, and the blinker, 2 filaments. That's why there's 3 wires coming from that light. And there's a divider, plastic divider, which you can see the indent here. So going here, following this green line that I drew to help guide me a little bit as I was doing this, there's a plastic piece that divides these compartments so light from the tail lights doesn't leak in here and make it look like you're backing up when you're not. Which gives you very little room for the bulb itself on the right to not make contact with the bulb that's facing this way to the right, and you don't want to drill into the divider on the left. I drew this little line to guide me down, and then I drilled a very small pilot hole just to the right of it. Through to the compartment. I had the light out, the factory light bulb out, so I could see that the drill bit completely cleared the divider, but not by much, meaning that I was as close to the left as possible, which meant that as long as my hole saw didn't drill any further to the left than that pilot hole, that I was going to be safe. So that's how I personally made sure that the light was going to be okay. I also made sure I gave myself some clearance from the top, or in this case I guess the back technically, but top in the picture here. So where my finger currently is, I didn't want this to be any further up here, because you don't want the bulb to be too close to this plastic and melt things and rattle around and shorten the life of the bulb. So wired that all in. You'll if you're paying attention, this wiring is different than what's in the documentation. Again, that's because you'll see, for example, my yellow goes to green here, as opposed to green to green, and that's because I ran the 4-wire loom against the passenger side. So I just made sure that I understood what wire was what, left and right. The last thing you want to do is turn on your left turn signal in the motorhome and have your Jeep blinking the right-hand side. So I tested that out to make sure I got that. We'll just come over. I'll show you the underneath in a minute, but same sort of deal for the driver's side light. In here, there's just a loose foam insert. I'm not going to pull it out. I'm just trying to see if I can get you a reasonably good shot. So that foam is literally just kind of sitting in there, what I did was I took the cable loom, and you can see right there at the edge of the light there's a zip tie. So I zip tied my cable, my wiring loom, to an existing wiring loom to help secure it on the way into this compartment. And I grounded over here. This is turning out to be loose, so I was unable to, that screw just kind of turns, and so that's not a very good ground connection. I'm not really sure. It works, but I'm expecting that that's going to work its way loose over time and stop functioning. So, I'm going to see what else I can drill into that may be a little thicker. It appears that this is too thin of a piece of metal for those screws. So if we go underneath, I'll put my light back on here and I'll just quickly show you what I did underneath. So
just to give you a sense of where I am right now. Right, this is the back, and I'm going to come under, and I'm going to turn around. So now I'm facing the garage. Now the driver's side is to the right of the video here, so I'm going to pan up here. Right, so this is the driver's side of the vehicle, and you'll notice that I did the same thing here as I secured the wiring loom. With this cable clamp here, I also use some zip ties. The zip ties are to help prevent movement of the loom back and forth. The clamp isn't quite enough to do that. And you'll notice I did the same thing with respect to finding holes in the frame rail. So this comes into the frame rail. It comes out the other side of the frame rail, up and over the bumper support, and then up into the taillight compartment. And we'll do sort of the same thing over here. So on the passenger side, we've got the clamp, zip tie, goes through the frame rail, comes to the other side, where I get the junction here, and then that goes straight up into that compartment for that taillight. So all in all, that took an awfully long time. Part of it's because I'm just kind of perfectionist a little bit when it comes to this kind of stuff. I used black tape here just to kind of seal this off a little bit and help protect it from the elements as well. I also have red electrical tape. That's what you're seeing there. It's not a wire. I've wrapped it twice. And I think that's really all there is to talk about, other than you watching me play yoga on the ground here. So I'm gonna walk around. I don't think there's anything else to talk about. So that is it. We'll leave you with that. Feel free to ask questions. And thanks for watching.